welcome to the Catholic Forge, a conversational podcast where we gather to explore our Catholic faith and discuss how it forms our lives. All are welcome to join in this conversational journey. Thank you for listening. Hey everyone, welcome to the show. This is Eric in Missouri.
This is Ben in Kentucky.
This is John in Illinois, the official home of Metropolis since 1972. Metropolis, Illinois. It is the official home of Superman, the hometown of Superman, right here in southern Illinois.
They have a statue and everything.
Right across from Kentucky.
There's a statue?
There is a statue.
But what was it called, the show? Smallville?
Well,
That's
was
where he grew up, but
Superman
lived in Metropolis as Superman. Is Clark Kent, and the little boy, lived in Smallville.
Metropolis was the New York City-like type place. You know, the Daily Planet, the newspaper he worked for. That was all Metropolis.
Which is in Illinois.
I always thought that Gotham was like Chicago, and then in the most recent film, the Batman vs. Superman, they were like across the bay from each other. And I was like, so is one Jersey and the other's New York City? I didn't know they were, I always thought they were like 500 miles apart, and that's why it took Batman a couple minutes to get over there to help Superman or vice versa, whatever it was, you know what I'm saying? Anyway, it messed it all up. Welcome to the Catholic Forge. Superhero Geography Edition. On this episode, considering the topic of superheroes, and speaking of that, just a quick note to thank my super heroine of a wife and my average children for being real.
Oh, come on,
real. For being real troopers. I mentioned a couple weeks back that, or however long it was ago, whenever it was, a couple episodes, that accepted a new position, and so we just finished the move, and so here I am in Missouri, and everything is going great. On this episode, superheroes in our culture, and I want to start with a question for Ben. Now, you may have stumbled upon that kind of silly one-off episode that John and I did, in which I rapid-fired some hypothetical questions at him, and I want to ask Ben the question that we began with, because it is pertinent to this conversation. And that question is, Ben, if you could have one superpower, the Force excluded, which superpower would you choose, and why?
Oh, man. On the spot, that's tough.
I will talk for 15 seconds. John chose the superpower of flight, and I chose a healing power. Not like Wolverine's, but like I can heal other people, but not heal myself. So those were our selections on that episode. So what's your gut reaction? What do you think?
Well, see, I was actually leaning towards healing power like Wolverine's for selfish reasons, because you wouldn't even have to use it to fight crime or anything. It's just practical. You cut your finger working with a saw, and there you go.
You don't wear seatbelts anymore.
Yeah. So not even necessarily for super reasons, but just for everyday life. Yeah. It seems like it would be a really practical power, the healing factor.
Sure. Okay. Very good. There it is. And so thank you for your contribution. We're looking at the fascination with superheroes in our time. Disney has just bought up everything having to do with superheroes, except for DC, and Fox owns a couple properties here and there. And of course, we're aware of this. I mean, mentioning Disney, this gamut of films that they have put out. Even in a couple days, the new one, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 comes out.
Oh, really?
And that's people expect that to be popular and good. I liked the first one; it was fun.
Yeah, it was.
And so we're just a simple roundtable tonight. But let's go back in time and talk about superheroes when we were kids. Does anyone have a story? I mean, like a reasonably enjoyable story to share about your love of superheroes as children?
Every day in first grade, I went and I told one of my friends that I had a different superpower. I told him that I was actually really a different superhero in disguise.
Did they ever believe you?
No, they didn't. In fact, they went home and asked their father, and their father said that I was a liar. And I thought, what kind of a father doesn't know how to pretend along with kids?
Sure, okay, that's good. I remember when I have no idea how old I was, but let's just say 8. Once again, my mom can fact check me on that when she listens to this episode in 2025. And I had a Batman themed birthday party, and I remember my grandparents. It was sometime around there. They got me. I mean, I'd have to look. I know that I can find it on eBay as some like collectible, but it was the well, hold on. It came out in '89, so I couldn't have been. I was between 5 and 9. Okay, let's just paint it with a broad brush.
Get to the point, man.
It was all of the gear from the Michael Keaton '89
yeah.
Batman movie, right?
Wow.
It had all like the real bold Batman symbol. What a great movie! I mean, can you? Oh my gosh!
Oh, I loved it.
I'm not trying to
Man crush.
rain on Christian Bale's parade or Christopher Nolan, but man, oh man, that was just it's still such a favorite. Anyway, so I remember being in the car with my grandparents who got it for me at Toys R Us, and I was like putting it on in the car, and my grandma was like, "Oh, Gail," my grandpa, "look at him," and he turns around and looks at me, and they're just laughing, and I'm laughing, and it was anyway. And I always, I mean, it was Batman, playing Batman on the NES, the Nintendo Entertainment System, or the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, or always X-Men. Certainly had a big X-Men phase. I remember hating going to soccer on Saturday mornings. I mean, who would want to go in the first place? But, because I couldn't stay home to
And
watch
the epic
on
cartoon.
Fox.
I had the same exact experience, and they had that incredible score at the beginning with the bell that would ring in it. Oh, it was so incredible.
It was, yeah. Oh man, give me chills. Ben, any noteworthy tales from your childhood?
I was really into Batman too. He was the first, like, well-known, top 5 superhero Batman. Before that, though, I was really into Thundercats. They don't really fall in the superhero category.
Yes, I remember the
Sure.
Thundercats. Yeah.
But
They play.
It was one of the heroes I said that I was in first grade.
Yeah, I have to say that
you were the Thundercats.
you were Lino.
No, I was Shitara, the girl, the one that ran really fast.
Yeah, so Thundercats was my first love, but then definitely I gravitated towards Batman more so than any of the others, more than Superman or Spider-Man or anything like that.
That's awesome. I mean, they just why would we love them so much? What qualifying factors now as adults looking back draw us to them? / why do we enjoy superheroes so much these days?
I think as a kid, I was really thinking about this as we were getting ready to talk about it. As a kid, I really wanted to be unique and special, and those superheroes were that. They were by their very nature, they were somehow different and special, and I wanted to be that, and that desire to be set apart, and so for me it was that was really the allure and attraction there, and I think that that's something that a lot of people have, especially as kids. They want to be really unique, but for me as a kid, that's really where it resided.
Yeah, and I don't think I knew this back then, but looking at it as an adult, superheroes I think really empower kids. Kids are helpless. You can't really affect much change in your own life or in your own world. You physically, you're weaker than adults. So to have these characters that are strong and they can, nobody can mess with them. They can stop anybody that gives them any problem. I think somewhere in a kid's mind, that's really attractive of like, wow, what if I could?
Yeah, as a child, you're so powerless. There's so many things that you don't control, and so somebody that does have control is very appealing.
Yeah, and like you were talking about the special, unique factor, a lot of the superheroes, in their everyday identity are, maybe somewhat nerdy or not popular. So if you're a kid that's not popular or a little bit different, you can even resonate with that. Like, hey, that's okay because Peter Parker, he's not really a popular jock either.
Yeah, I think that's the same thing even with like a Harry Potter character. You've got the reject.
Absolutely. I mean, and isn't that so foundational and fundamental to so much of what we love about fantasy, Star Wars included? Luke
The little
just
farm boy.
wanted
Yeah.
he just wanted to go to Tachi Station, pick up the power converters, which was a lie. And Frodo, sweet Frodo, looked down upon by the whole world. Middle Earth looked down on him. So absolutely, for me, there was always that attraction to Jean Grey, but also to the.
I always found her annoying.
Oh man, come on!
Yeah. The whole Phoenix Saga thing was just so blah.
So powerful. Okay, well,
Too soap
all right.
opera-y.
Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. The good guys win. Now,
Yeah.
in the comic books, it gets all kinds of convoluted. In the films, because they're their own entity, typically the good guys win, although they may suffer losses. Of course, now in our time, like we're getting into the last Act 3 of the Avengers Infinity Saga. And so the Avengers are kind of losing, and they're kind of mad at each other, and Thanos is getting all the super duper gems or whatever it is. But they'll win in the end. And
Really?
and so that kind of, but that was the same thing we talked about on the Disney episode too, like happily ever after, generally speaking. And so that was appealing to me to know that there was that goodness would almost always win in the end.
Yeah, curiously enough on that, I can remember as a child visiting my uncle, and we were watching the old Adam West Batman series just intently. It was on reruns, and we were just watching it. And he came in, he's like, "You guys come outside." And we're like, "Oh, we'll wait till Batman's over." And he said, "He's not going to die." And that was it. I never watched the show again. The realization that he couldn't die because the show was about him defeated it to me. But so I did want him to win, of course, as Eric's saying. But the potential of death was important.
Okay. Absolutely. Now that we are adultish, looking at superheroes, they win, generally speaking. Sometimes how they win or how they live their lives can be problematic. And so in just a little bit, someone else get us there. We'll talk about how we would use superheroes as like models for our kids. But what about the morality of superheroes? Is there a natural law or a natural or universal moral law in the Marvel Cinematic Universe? I don't know.
Absolutely. Of course there would be. But there would be a whole unique set of problems. I mean, you're Superman, you got X-ray vision, you're Professor X, and you can read people's minds. Like, there's a whole new set of questions that have real concrete answers, but that you'd have to operate by. That's a curious thing.
With great power comes great responsibility.
Hello.
That's got to be one of the most quoted superhero things. Everyone seems to have that quote. Yeah.
Yeah, and because of the movie, totally. I don't even know if it appears in a comic book.
It's the quote that priests can fool you to thinking came from the Bible.
Yeah.
It sounds almost enough like something that Jesus would say. But of course, we're standing. We mentioned Batman and Superman. Here they are. They're good guys. No question. Definitely no question with Superman until he starts killing people. With Batman, at least we kind of know that's not on the table.
Yeah, it's always one of his character traits.
Like we know that he's, and certainly with the Joker, whether it's in the films or in certainly even in the video games, which I've enjoyed many of, and in the video games, he finally did kill the Joker for real. He incinerated him in a whatever it was.
That's not very
incinerator.
funny for a Joker.
He wasn't laughing because he was dead. But so here's Batman, who you think would be on the equal level of good guyness with Superman, but they are not the same at all. That's why they fight. Because they're in such contention with each other. And so that's why I would ask about there being a moral law. Because why don't they all follow it if they're all supposed to be inherently good or for
Yeah.
the good. What's the deal?
But with Batman and Superman, that's more of a philosophical difference, isn't it? It's the concept that Batman is disturbed by this all-powerful being that can't be kept in check. There's no check or balance to him, and that's more that what disturbs him, isn't it, than actually Superman's actions? I'm not very familiar with that series.
You mean the Batman versus Superman idea?
Yeah, the comic book. I mean, I think I remember watching the movie, and it was more the reality that there's this being that has all this power. Who will keep him in check is more a philosophical problem than Batman is actually angry with Superman's actual actions.
Both. In the film, if you care for it, in the very beginning of it, we go back to the last Superman movie, which was called Meh. And it's when Superman and are fighting in Metropolis, Illinois, just wrecking the place. And the idea is that Superman, with his super duper,
that's right. He done so
with
much
his
damage.
Death Star laser vision, cuts Wayne Tower, the Metropolis branch, in half. As Bruce is like driving to it, and he's on the phone with the guy, evacuate the building, hurry, or whatever it is. And then he doesn't get there in time, and the whole building just collapses, and all these people are killed.
Oh, so civilians and everything.
Absolutely,
Okay.
including his friends, apparently, who worked there, I guess. And so then Bruce...
That's his first problem. CEOs are never supposed to be friends with their employees.
Fair enough. But so it's a vengeance thing. But the cultural idea is that Superman can't be controlled. And so culturally speaking, and the reason the government gets in on it, and Lex Luthor eventually creating the monster whose name is Armageddon. No, that was someone else. That's who killed. No, Apocalypse. No,
Apocalypse
I'm
is
not
X-Men.
Yeah,
I'm not so good.
So there's the villain that's created. Yeah.
Anyway, so the government effectively creates the who kills Superman. Spoilers, and they are concerned that Superman can't be controlled. Batman, Bruce Wayne, so spoilers, they're the same person, is on a personal vendetta to get back at Superman because he murdered all his employees, and I mean the insurance payoff. You know what I'm saying? And so that's some of that. But beyond that, back to that idea of moral law. If they're both good guys, quite apart from their feud, and bringing in, let's rope in. Well, I guess Spider-Man's pretty plain Jane, but
He's pretty moral.
we'll bring him in. Wolverine, Professor X was a great example. Iron Man, all of whom are, well, I don't know. Wolverine's a good guy. I don't know. Hard to say. That's just it. Why can't I just say he's a good guy?
Yeah,
He is, right? I'm supposed
I
to love
don't know
him.
that with any of these characters, and I feel like we're going a little bit in a circle here. I don't know with any of these characters that there's any unique morality with them. I mean, with all of those characters, Iron Man and stuff like that, he's just a broken human person. He's got all the same character failures that a normal human being has. And with some of the people with superpowers, so it may be amplified a little, but their morality still stays the same. Just the situations that they may find themselves in present them more of an opportunity. So I'm not really quite sure the point of this decursory line.
I think really with all of these characters, where you see their moral choices is when they've got the bad guy in their sights, whether they kill him or whether they just turn him over to the law or leave him tied up or whatever.
It is, yeah.
But even that's a tricky one because it's not necessarily immoral to kill a villain, depending on the circumstances. You've got self-defense. You've got if your lack of killing him, he's at that moment going to kill a crowd of innocent people. Your killing him might actually be the moral action because there was no other way to stop him from doing this evil. But
you're getting into the concept of the principle of double effect, and there are some pretty hard and fast rules on that. You could actually never intend the killing of the villain. You're intending the stopping of them, which may involve killing them. But usually when the superhero has apprehended them, the taking of life is always at the last resort, and it can never be a preemptive, premeditated. If I catch the Joker one more time, he's just going to break out of Arkham, and then he's going to poison 1,000 more people. So if I kill him now, I save the 1,000 people. We're never allowed to preemptively do it. And I think most of the superheroes are pretty good at following that rule. Minus people like Deadpool or
actually,
the dark heroes.
As a kid, I mean, which I wasn't, any kind of formed Christian at the time, but as a kid, it was actually annoying when they would let the bad guy go, because as a kid, you're shouting at the screen, "He's just going to do it again," or like,
he's still dangerous,
or the classic.
He's got a knife. Look out! He's got a knife.
Exactly, the classic scene of the good guy turns his back, and then they pull a gun out of their ankle, holster or whatever.
Right.
And that's how the writers were able to give the audience the satisfaction of the villain being brought to an ultimate demise, but not have the superhero compromise his morality. So that was what that little device always was. And you see that especially in a lot of old Disney films where the villain has one last strike, and then, we have to throw the sword or they fall off the cliff. And
they fall too far or whatever it is.
Yeah,
absolutely.
But it's always the last resort. And while that may have become a little goofy, it's actually a good thing, because it does defend the morality of that person, that they themselves, while they're fighting an evil, will not become the evil to fight it. They won't become what they are fighting against.
Sure. So this, if we can kind of pivot on it a little bit, certainly in previous conversations, I know you both had mentioned that your children have sort of a blossoming fascination with the superheroes, and I think that I don't know that Hannah would actually know. If we went to a Halloween thing one time and she was terrified of someone dressed up as Ultron, as she should have been. and that she knew that she did not like that, and then she said, "That's a bad guy," and I said, "That would be accurate," and so but Ben, you had mentioned that Evie is down with Supergirl, right?
No, she hasn't seen Supergirl.
Batgirl.
We've gotten a few little like easy reader, like level 1 books from the library or whatever that have Batgirl was in one of them. But I mean, she even likes the male characters. Thor, Hulk, like a lot of them. I think these books were most of them were Marvel. But
the new Thor is a woman, and there's a She-Hulk.
That's true.
So that's awesome.
But I liked. She really took to them instantly and just loved it. And I love that in our relativistic society that it's an easy way. Superheroes still do take a stand, and they say that there is good and there is evil. And it's just an easy way for kids to see that, the battle between good and evil, and that bad, like we were talking earlier, that bad doesn't prevail, that good will win in the end. And so I don't, she hasn't really articulated, what she loves about it, but she definitely has taken to them pretty quickly.
My kids have really gravitated, and Lego has been our avenue into the superhero world, because Lego has done kid-friendly versions. I mean, even the cartoons that are of superheroes, most of them are really not appropriate for younger kids.
Right.
In fact, we started watching one, and all of a sudden there was some vulgarity. Actually, we were swearing. We're like, oh, okay, we're done with that series. But the Lego series is really pretty benign in that stuff, and so it's been enjoyable. They're humorous, and the nice thing is that I can sit down and watch them with the kids and enjoy it. So the ARC has really enjoyed the superhero stuff, though, and we play that. And of course, for them, it's all combined. They were so delighted when they found out that Star Wars was owned by the same company that owned like Spider-Man and stuff, because then we could play them together. So Michael can be Spider-Man and Joe can be Luke Skywalker, and it's okay because they're the same company. That's what I told them. So it's
that's right. Yeah.
It's that superhero thing, and I think it goes back to what we were saying, that idea of being unique and power. I see from my kids, I think it would be being powerful. There's so many things that children have fears and insecurities about, and being a superhero makes it so you don't have to be afraid of those things. I don't have to be afraid anymore. And so I think that's really a big thing with my kids when I see them gravitate towards them. They're all terrified of Daddy eating them, so I come in, and then Michael turns into Hulk, and he really likes the Hulk.
So have you all seen the Lego Batman movie yet?
No, I have not, but I heard it was delightful.
Okay, yeah, I haven't either.
I saw the Lego movie,
Right.
which had Batman in it.
Oh, it did, didn't
but
it?
no, I didn't see the standalone. No.
Okay. It should be good.
It looked fun. It wasn't something I went to the theater to see. And so I think that leads to just one more question, if we dare, and that is, it's the same question that Ben, I think, brought up in the Disney discussion, and that is, when's a good time to introduce your kids to superhero stuff? I think we kind of already answered that. But the challenge would be, and you've mentioned it. I mean, Ben started with level 1 reading comics of a kind, with Batgirl or whoever, and then John's talking about the Disney cinematic universe with obviously cartoons, but also films, and then of course there are the more adult comic books, or comic books for young adults and that kind of thing. I mean, is there any kind of guideline that we might even suggest to our listeners or to ourselves? I mean, because we're dealing with violence. I couldn't tell you any superhero that doesn't use it in some form or another, but I'm sure John's going to have some smart remark here in about 10 seconds. But if not violence, then certainly hypersexualization of characters, not just ladies, but some of the fellas too, and so is there kind of a guiding principle there, or do we just want to? Do you want me to just copy the part from the Disney section and put it in here?
Yeah, I think that's beyond my pay grade and education level, and to know really when it's appropriate for kids. But there are some real dangers within the superhero world, as you said. Especially like when you get to the comic books. I mean, they're very anatomically detailed, even more so than I would like my children to be looking at and stuff. And the same thing with the level of violence and the vulgarity and some of the use of some of the profanities, especially the I'm saying a little harsher than that, and that's an acceptable word in the comic book world. So sure. There are definite dangers there that are worth being, as parents, watching for. But so that's why the Lego versions for us have been pretty safe.
Sure. Yeah,
I agree. That I mean, we've joked about that recently. I've been reading. Gotten into reading a few comics, and that term graphic novel kind of has a double meaning, because, like you said, John, I mean, some of it is very graphic. I mean, both in the portrayal of the bodies that are drawn, but also in the violence. I mean, in the blood, and I'm an adult reading it, but I think, man, should a 13-year-old, which I get them from the public library, and it has a little yellow tag that says teen on the side of it. That's the section of the library that it's in. So I'm like, man, should a 13-year-old even be looking at this? And in my mind, if it was my 13-year-old, the answer is definitely not.
No, I mean, it really is the equivalent of pornography or a Playboy at that time.
Yeah, for a kid that age, it at the very least, it definitely invites the imagination to take the picture off the page and then run in a farther direction with it. But,
right.
And not to slam comics, but I've even been asking myself lately, I've really enjoyed some of them, but I put a lot of things through the filter of, does this bring me closer to God or farther from God? And I haven't picked up a comic yet that I can say, oh, this brought me closer to God. I mean, at the very least, sure. It was a neutral effect, but I've never thought, oh, I was much better off for having read this, but on the generalization, though, the way that the films do, I think that those are much more enjoyable, and they do a lot of work for you. They condense everything down, so you don't have to get into that deep comic world if you don't want to.
Yeah, though, I think, Eric, looks like you're bringing our studio time to an end. I think it's a neat point here too to say, though, what you're saying, you hadn't seen any reason that, or they've really not been a positive impact in your life. They're probably neutral, but I think it begs the question. We talked about comic books and superheroes as children and then as adults in our culture, and I think it is a worthy note, and Eric, you'd brought this up in the pregame shows, really this look is, what is the historical look at heroes, and why are they part of our culture? Because we see them in the Bible, and we see them in every culture. There are these mythological or above ordinary people that have powers, and Hercules, and that it must do something for the human person. And while they may not teach us theological truths, I think in general, when we look at most of the heroes of human cultures, they are a net positive in the sense that they're either teaching us what pitfalls not to take, Samson and Delilah, or about the behaviors that we should have. David slays Goliath and says repeatedly, it was by the hand of God that, God's enemies have fallen to me, And so we get to see these heroes. And so I think heroes are a really important part of the human culture, and of course, a way that we relate morality. And so I think as parents, when we're looking and going, when do we introduce ourselves to children? Of course, our safest heroes, most of the time, is going to be those that we find in scriptures and stuff like that. But they fulfill that same kind of role, that idea that they are teaching certain moral stories and behaviors. And so when we're evaluating which ones are the ones that we would want to pick up, I think that really should be something we look at. My brother, I think I've said this before, hates watching movies with me. He says, you can't just watch a movie. You got to analyze everything and pull out why it's wrong. And but that's what we as parents have to do when we're watching the comic book movies or something like that, is go, does this little piece give me something that is good to go forward with?
Yeah, I think that's a good point.
Absolutely. I think the whole notion of biblical superheroes is fun too, because these are bombastic stories. They're at the level of what we would now call fantasy, even high fantasy. The whole drama of Elijah and all that stuff. But we can see, even through all that craziness, generally speaking, they are turning themselves to God, or in some form, a submission of God. And of course, just as we're talking, I'm remembering that in a particular translation of the very famous passage from Isaiah, which maybe you heard at Christmas Mass, that Jesus is called God Hero. And that's not all translations would use that term, but it's there. Even Jesus himself, in the prophecies, painted as a hero for Israel. If you step aside from Messiah, Redeemer, King, a hero for God's people. And so we too, we can not only find some value in the Iron Mans, and I don't know what Aquaman does, but he seems really cool.
Talks to dolphins.
I don't know. I don't know. We'll find out in his standalone movie coming up what exactly it is that he's doing.
Interesting.
They're making one?
Oh yeah, for all of the. Once again, I'm just not qualified to talk about this without further research. Whatever they're called, the
Justice League.
The Justice League.
Oh,
Thank you. Each of them, I think, is getting a standalone film.
Oh, okay.
So good luck with that. Anyway, this has been the Catholic Forge. Thank you for listening. We'd like to close this episode, as always, with a prayer and a blessing. May God the Father,
God the Son,
and God the Holy Spirit bless you, guard you, and lead you to eternal life. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Thank you for listening to the Catholic Forge. We hope you've enjoyed this episode and will leave us a positive rating and review on iTunes, SoundCloud, or YouTube. Please continue the conversation with us on Facebook and Twitter. Let us know what superheroes are your favorite superheroines as well. And to get a hold of us, you can reach us at thecatholicforge@gmail.com. For more information regarding the podcast, visit our website at www.thecatholicforge.com. We especially thank our super wives, no offense to John Williams, for their continued support of this project, and we thank you very much for listening.
So would you be super beard or super guitar man?
I was just thinking we forgot to mention a Super Mario.